welcome back to another powerful episode of Healthy Mind, Healthy Life, where we get brutally honest about the things that that makes us, uh, I mean, crash, rise, stick, and rebuild. So, today's episode, dear listeners, is not uh, here to stroke your ego. It's here to interrupt your patterns. Because let's face it, confidence alone is a kind of BS. Trust is fragile, and your brain, well, it's definitely lazier than you think. So, dear listeners, our guest today is Clay Moffat. So, welcome to the show, Clay.
Thank you for having me, sir. It's a pleasure to be here.
Amazing. So, dear listeners, before we delve deep into the discussion, I'll quickly love to introduce you with Clay. So, Clay is an ex Navy weapons tech, elite behavioral coach, and the raw, no fluff author of The Trust Trap. So he's the guy, high performers call when they have hit their limit, like with others, with betrayal, and most importantly, with themselves. So, Clay teaches the hard truths about trust, self betrayal, and why success without self awareness is a trap in disguise. So, if you have ever ignored your gut, or sabotaged your own progress, or found something, or maybe found yourself wondering that why do I keep doing this? So, buckle up because this episode is the ones going to hurt and then heal. So, let's get started. Welcome to the show again.
Thank you, sir. Where would you like to go first?
So, I'll definitely love to start with this phrase like confidence is a scam. I mean, and that what people really need is commitment. So, if you can unpack, why do you believe confidence is overrated, and what makes commitment more powerful in the long run?
So, the two things.
Uh-huh.
First of all, confidence is an unreliable foundation for success, right? And that comes because it's typically a feeling, right? It's emotional, and commitment's more structural. I think that's the best way to say it. So, confidence can fluctuate, even though it's technically belief based. Your belief can change based on your state. So if you're feeling down in the dumps, the beliefs about what's capable for you can start to be lesser and lesser and lesser. So it depends on context, depends on mood, depends on hormones, depends on weather, sleep, blood sugar, whether someone liked your post this morning, if you want to get into the extreme of it, right?
Yeah.
Whereas commitment is a decision to a process that you continue to make. Committing itself is a process. And it's a process you continue to keep making. And the beauty of it is that it doesn't care how you feel. It doesn't. When you're committed, whether you feel good, whether you feel bad, whether you feel angry, whether you feel sad, you show up. And so the continual showing up will start to rewire your behavior regardless of your mood. So why it's a scam?
Mm.
If you look at the self-development architecture and the way things are generally sold, they talk about how it's a prerequisite. Oh, when I feel good, when I feel confident, then I'm going to get this. Okay. Well, a lot of people aren't feeling confident, so therefore they don't take any action, and therefore they just stay stuck. And it's backwards. Action itself creates confidence, not the other way around. So confidence is a scam, fools you. It just messes with your head and throws you into chasing emotion more so than
Yeah.
execution. And then people start journaling about their blocks instead of doing the hard thing. And a lot of people confuse a shortcut, and they're always looking for a shortcut, but sometimes the shortcut is just doing the damn work. So confidence to me is an unreliable mechanism. It's overhyped. It's not a bad thing, but the
Yeah.
way it's presented, the way that the self-development movement is like framed confidence as be all is just total junk.
Yeah. Understood. So, I mean, how does this shift, impact the way we build the trust? Not just in others, but ourselves also.
How does it impact the way we build trust?
Uh,
Well, that's a very, very interesting question. Um, the easiest way to express that is if you're chasing confidence, then you're not necessarily trustworthy because confidence builds trust in appearances, whereas commitment, it builds trust in outcomes. That's the way I would look at it. Confidence is more like look at me, whereas commitment says count on me. So one's kind of looking for validation, whereas the other one earns validation. Does that make sense? Like one's kind of like posing for it. It's like a gold digger looking for their honeypot, right? They're looking for this thing that they're going to get. Like, okay, we're going to get this thing. So they glam themselves up to get this perfect ride and to get this thing out. And that's kind of the way I picture confidence. Confidence is like a gold digger.
hmm.
So you're going to attract all these people that are going to get you to where you want to go because you look confident, because you've got this thing on the outside. Now, that's not necessarily true of confidence in of itself because confidence is based off beliefs. And again, I'll say this again, confidence is not a bad thing. However, if you think confidence is more important than commitment, if you think you need confidence to start, if you think confidence is going to get you over the finish line when you're not committed, you're completely wrong and you've got it backwards. So if you're hooked on confidence, you'll likely find yourself overpromising and under-delivering to try and protect your image. You overpromise, right? You'll likely find yourself in a situation where uh, you're performing, and what I mean by performing is like you're putting on a show as opposed to executing, implementing, and actually producing results.
Hmm.
So you're constantly chasing these win after win after win to try and feel good again. And if you're hooked and chasing confidence, there's a high likelihood you'll collapse under pressure because your identity itself is built on feeling ready versus being ready.
Exactly. It actually hits differently because we chase confidence like it's a prize, but it's often just a kind of mask of uncertainty. Commitment, though. So, commitment. It sticks around even when the lights go out. So, yep, definitely.
So real confidence
Hmm.
comes from a separation from needing to impress anyone else. Doing
Hmm.
something because you're just doing it. You're not doing something because you're trying to get a result for someone else or for some kind of status for something else that's external.
Hmm.
That makes sense?
Makes sense. Yeah.
Okay, so that level of confidence is useful, but
Hmm.
that's not what is sold in the self-development sphere.
Hmm.
And there's a
Correct.
very big difference between the two.
True. Yeah. Definitely. So, like, uh, you talk about this brain is lazy and wired for these shortcuts. So, definitely, which sounds harmless, but it's actually dangerous also. So, how does our nervous system set us up for the betrayal or kind of repeated failure? What do you have to say?
Yeah, that's pretty simple. So if you want to break it down from evolutionary psychology standpoint,
Okay.
your nervous system doesn't care about goals, it cares about survival. And survival means I'm going to go with what's familiar versus I'm going to go with something new that could lead to growth, right? The brain is lazy because it automates patterns to save energy. And it does that because that's how we have learned to survive, right? It wasn't every day or every year. I mean, if you go back 50 years, there weren't even convenience stores that are open 24/7 where you could go and get something, right? Now there's 7-Elevens all over the world. You can walk into a 7-Eleven or convenience store, whatever you want to call it. I don't care. I've got one just down the road, a 7-Eleven. And if we're missing anything that's like essential, we can go get water, we can go get food, we can go get washing detergent. Like if we've missed something, we're pretty much good. But when we've evolved and the way our brain has evolved over time, that wasn't the case. And so it put a lot of energy into conserving energy. So I'll map these things and these habits and ways to shortcut the narrative. So there might be a task that we're learning to do, and then we recognize that we've got steps 1 to 21, and we can skip step 7, step 11, step 17, and 19, and nothing's
True.
going to go wrong.
Mm.
And so that then just becomes the way. However, step 11, step 13, 17, and 19 are actually crucial,
Uh,
but they're okay to miss 90% of the time. But on that 10%, it's going to wipe you
mm.
out. And so the brain's like, well, we're good 90% of the time. We haven't had any problems. So we're just going to cut them out. And that becomes the process. And so when you're talking with people, when you're chatting with people, and when you first meet someone, even
Yeah.
if you connect well with them, it can actually be quite draining because you're paying attention to them in a way that you wouldn't usually pay attention to them once you're familiar. And once they're familiar, the nervous system puts them in the safe bucket. When they're in the safe bucket, they're like, okay, we don't need to pay attention to this person in the same way. So the hard wiring that has us shortcut these things for our benefit, for our survival, is actually something that leads us to our detriment, because now they've been put into this safe bucket. When information comes up that contradicts that, we get cognitive dissonance and we start arguing as to why they're actually okay.
Mm.
So if chaos or avoidance, like all this stuff comes up, your system logs a default response, even if it ruins your life now, right? So because you've been having a chaotic life, so that's familiar, so you have chaos, and it shortcuts that. Even if it's painful, it's familiar. If you have a person who's marked as safe, like
Mm.
whether it's painful, whether it's self-destructive, it's familiar, and your person's like, okay, no, we're good. Like this person's safe. It doesn't matter. Like we know they're safe. And
Yeah.
anything unfamiliar is a threat, right? You want to try something new. Let's say you're an entrepreneur. You want to launch an offer. You want to have a hard conversation with someone. Anything that triggers resistance in your system, it does so because it's unmapped, and because unmapped, it takes more energy to fire, and because it takes more energy to fire, the system doesn't want to do it. And then the next part of that is that you start looping because you sabotage, for lack of a better word, and then
Yeah.
it starts over again. And then each time, what you find is you create like this separation and this segregation of yourself, because it
Yeah.
becomes harder and harder to trust yourself.
True. And uh, what do you have to say? Like, what are some of the signs that someone is kind of outsourcing their sanity instead of reclaiming that?
Um, so that really depends,
Mm-hmm.
purely because when you look at the spread of things,
Mm-hmm.
outsourcing your sanity means handing over emotional regulation, handing over decision making, and even in some cases, like extreme cases, handing over self worth to someone or something else,
Yeah.
right? So
Yeah.
it can look like responsibility. You might feel like you got a connection. Really, you're in the passenger seat. So some signs that people are outsourcing is they need someone else to constantly validate their choices,
Mm.
right? And if they don't get an agreement, they start freezing, they start backpedaling, they start negotiating. Their mood is like a mirror of other people's behavior.
Yeah.
They are typically waiting for permission before acting. Now, obviously, like this is a general list. If you've got a boss and you need to wait for permission, that doesn't necessarily mean you're outsourcing your sanity. Okay. There are definitely specific roles where this is going to be necessary. If you're in a relationship and you just go and do something, you don't ask your partner, whether it's your husband or wife, what their opinion is, and it affects both of you, that's probably a pretty narcissistic thing to do. You should probably consult them, depending on what it is that you're doing, right? So there are things here, right? Um, one of the biggest things I would say is they really attach to titles like gurus or systems like their lifeboats. Like, oh, I'm just going to follow this because if I follow this, then everything's going to be perfect. Instead of figuring it out themselves and recognizing like they need to adapt it for their own life, right? Some people panic without access to a coach or a therapist or a partner or their support person. And this is the distinction. They can't self-regulate. So they don't necessarily need help. I mean, technically they do. If they can't self-regulate, they need help. But they don't necessarily need help. They just never learn to regulate their system properly, right? A lot of people fake it by saying, I'm confused. And they're not
Mm.
really confused. But what they really want to do is they want to get out of jail free card, so they don't need to take responsibility for what they already know they need to do.
Exactly. Wow. Ooh, that's amazing. And so if we talk about the trust trap in 3 weeks, like knowing you might not have the another chance. So how did that level of urgency shift the way you told the truth, like to yourself and to others? What you say?
Um, that was pretty simple. So I wouldn't say it shaped anything other than the fact that it was a very real situation where there was a very real percentage chance that I wasn't going to see on the other side of it. So I'm quite direct, I would say. I think other people would say the same thing too. I do endeavor as best as I can not to mince words and get straight to the point as much as possible. And
Okay.
that can have negative effects because people will take things as in the way they interpret them, not necessarily the way you said them. And
Mhm.
so the message gets distorted based on the filters and the mechanisms that they have. Now, that being said, I just wrote it and I wrote it with a frame of reference that I wanted it to be like a self contained coaching system that didn't require me. And so it would solve a problem. And anything that did not amplify that message was cut. And that was the frame that I went through it with. And then my editor went and helped me get it to something that's more readable and more legible for people to understand and connect the dots and have a smoother transition through the process. But I would say that the biggest thing was just being very ruthless with recognizing I want it to be the minimum amount of words possible. And that meant that I left some details out that I think would probably add value to it now and have a more well rounded approach. And at the same time, I will likely never adjust it because I think it captures the intensity of how I wanted to get this message out and it needed to be done. And as if I was grabbing someone and shaking them by the shoulder, saying, wake up, like pay attention. Do you see what's happening? You need to get through this. Because that kind of urgency was what was present in my life. Like, I need to get this through to people. I need to get this message out there. I need to wake people up. I need to show them. Like there's a big thing in marketing where they're always saying, turn around and show people how it's not their fault. Like that's a huge part of marketing, right?
Mm.
And I've never really bought into it before. I'm like, well, no, because you need to take accountability. Like you have to take accountability to get results. And the funny thing of it was when writing this book, you can't really take accountability of the fact that evolutionary psychology has developed your brain for hundreds of thousands of years, and this is the result. You can't really take accountability for the fact that this is the way the English language has shaped the way your brain and your reality interprets the world because you didn't invent the English language. So you can't take
Mhm.
accountability for those things. They're heuristics that we have inside the brain. They're processes that we have. And you can't really take responsibility for that. What you can do though is once you start to see the patterns and recognize the patterns, you can take accountability on how you want to respond to those patterns, now knowing how things are forming and shaping in the background.
That's true. So, if I have to ask, like a lot of high performers operate in a state of kind of functional chaos,
Mhm.
and they are burning out while also pretending they are winning. So, what are the most common patterns you see in the leaders who have lost the trust in themselves, uh, and also if you, I mean, how do you help them break that out? So, what do you say?
Can you ask that again? A lot of high performers operate in a state of chaos and then it cut out for a second.
Oh, so like I mentioned, like a lot of high performers, they operate in functional chaos. Like they are burning out, but they pretend that they're winning. So in that sense, what you see are the most common patterns. I mean, in the leaders like who have lost trust in themselves.
Okay, that makes sense.
Mhm.
Um, Pretty simply,
Okay.
they
Hmm.
they have this problem where they start creating a mechanism where they start doubting their decisions.
Mhm.
And then that starts causing more doubt and becomes a self-fulfilling loop. Does
Okay.
that make sense?
Mhm. Okay.
And what starts to stem from that is this cascading effect. And this cascading effect just causes absolute chaos.
Mm.
So the way to start to shift that is not through overcompensating, which is what they typically do, right? Because from the outside, they look successful. Internally, they're bleeding out. So they'll usually try to overproduce as an identity, right? Because they'll equate that their worth is equivalent to their output. So if they're not producing, they're going to feel worthless. So they never stop and they just keep going, right? They grind and grind. And this is where the hustle and grind culture like really falls into the groove.
Mm.
If I pause, it all fall apart, including me. So I need to narrow it down. I need to push forward, right? There's also massive micromanaging, over preparing, double checking, triple checking, quadruple checking, quintuple checking. And it's not got nothing to do because they lack trust in others. It's because they don't trust themselves to course correct, or they don't even trust themselves to make the right decisions in the first place. And that has this cascading negative effect through the entire corporation where they're working, leadership, management, whatever you want to call it. That starts to erode trust in all the levels because other people start to see it as a lack of trust in themselves because they can't read these people ahead of them and see that it's actually got nothing to do with them. It's projections from their bosses. The next thing which I see, which is very, very common, is avoidance. So they'll tunnel into work, right? And they'll
Yeah.
dive in and they'll get so focused while avoiding some very, very hard truths. They might have a broken marriage. They might have poor health. They might have emotional numbness. So they will say, hey, man, I've got all this discipline and I'm pushing forward and you guys are dropping away because
Mm.
actually their life is crumbling behind the scenes. And so they're kind of really just destroying themselves and digging themselves further into the grave because they are blinding themselves to the reality and just focusing in on the work.
Mm.
Then you've got another one, which I would say that, and you see a lot of people talk about this. I think it's total junk. They talk about how they've done it all alone.
Okay.
And that's not true, right? They believe no one else could handle their reality without any kind of help. And they did it all themselves because they're a unique, special snowflake without remembering that everyone else on the earth is a unique, special snowflake. Right. And I don't believe in anything as like a self made millionaire or billionaire. So in like recent times, Mr. Beast is like one of the youngest billionaires in the planet. And he's done like really, really well. And even though he's developed a system and he's hijacked YouTube and he's like one of the most watched and he's done this and this and this, he still had teams. He still had people that were building it with him. He didn't do it all alone. He had mentors. So while he's done a lot and he's done amazing, and I would never take any of that away from him, I don't think I could do what he's done. I'm not in the same position as him. So I'm not going to say he hasn't. But if he ever said, look, I'm self made, I'd say, no, you're not. No one's self made because we all have help from people. And how we get that help is different. The other thing that really starts to come through is that they have like these modes of operation. They're never just themselves. And they like to play roles like, oh, I'm like a motivator. I'm going to show that motivate people. And then they're going to talk about how like this visionary and they talk about all these cool things they're doing. Then I'm like, I'm a stoic. And then they're going to be disconnected from their emotions and they're not really going to connect with people. No one's going to get me. And they withdraw completely. There's so many ways that it can show up. But typically what will happen is on the outside, they look like they're running this empire, but they become a stranger to themselves. And until they rebuild internal trust, everything they build externally will feel hollow and will just eat at them. And so they'll want to build even more and it won't solve the issue at hand.
Yeah. Understood. That's amazing. Ooh, lovely. Clay, I mean, just drop the kind of truth that doesn't just inspire. I mean, it interrupts you, dear listeners. So, um, if you have been blaming others and like spinning in burnout or saying yes, So when your gut screams no, this is your invitation to stop outsourcing your sanity. Because as Clay said, confidence fades, but commitment, yes, that's the sharp edge of transformation. And trust, like it's not built by pretending, but it's built by choosing again and again. So whether you are leading a team, launching a dream, or maybe trying to do your own patterns, then do the hard work of trusting yourself first. So grab the trust trap, follow Clay's work, and Clay, if someone wants to connect with you, what will be the best medium?
Best medium is my email, go@claymoffat.com, or reach out to me on X, which is at Moffat, MOFFATCLAY, because I'm on there most out of all the platforms.
Amazing. Lovely. So, dear listeners, I'll put all the links into the show notes for your easy reference. And with this, hope until next time, this is your host, Avik, and you have been listening to Healthy Mind, Healthy Life. And yes, trust isn't permanent, but your power is. So, stay real, stay committed, and stay awake. Thank you so much.